Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better.
What it says on the bike, whoops, we don't want blood on the tire. The beauty of the countryside. Yep, that tire pressure is way too high.
My name is Dave Moss. For over 20 years now, I've been helping riders maximize the performance and life of the tires on their motorcycles. This is Contact Patch.
We begin the massive Hypersport tire test, 2,000 miles per tire. First up is Bridgestone S22.
Here's a preview.
Before we get started, we have to know what cold pressures to use. So after diligence on the web between Mr. Williams and myself, we found use the sticker on the bike or use your owner's manual. And anybody got 10 bucks? What do you want to guess? Yep, 36.42. So we are going to set the tire pressures accordingly, and then I'm going to start the initial ride, see what we get for feedback, roll profile, left to right, braking stability, the usual scrubbing stuff, so I can get some data on the bike. So first test up for good old Trash and Treasure. She gets to get to work at last. Let's see what we come back with. Well, let's see how these S22s behave and see what energy output it's required from me to ride. So I'm going to keep my speed pretty constant, so there's a fair shake between each tire, right around 65 miles an hour. Alright, so energy input. Nice and easy on the hands on the slow stuff. My weight is forward and my weight is placed on the bars. It's a slow roll, but if we want to change and I push hard, you can see the camera angle change. But see how slow it rotates back to center? So, energy definitely required. So, longer, straighter sections, just barely nudge it, and it goes where you want to go. So, lots of stability. That's the good part that we're finding here. You want it to respond, then you have to input. But as soon as the input is done, it's good. So here we go, wait, go straight, input, and it stays there. And then it rolls back up. So if we want to keep our lean angle sustained like that, S22 says no problem, you can stay right where you're at. Next curve, just gently input, correct. But you've got to physically correct and commit to the steering. So that's all good. At that point, you're choosing your line and radius. So again, we want to correct, push it back, that's good. Try different placements within the lane. So outside to in, gently, because it's a long, slow corner, and line it back up. And again, the roll profile to the 12 o'clock position is pretty slow. Alright, so a lot of energy required if you want a quick correction, but once you've set your line, this thing's planted. Now we're coming up to the bumpy section, and let's see how it behaves with the sticker pressure of 36.42. So, as the bumps start rolling in, oh dear me, that higher pressure is making the bike lift over every bump. It's like the suspension's not absorbing anything. And we set the bike reasonably plush. So, all the imperfections at this tire pressure, the rear in particular, every little imperfection's coming straight through to me. So let's ride on the center right in the car tracks, because usually this part of the road's pretty broken. Yep, every imperfection. So at that point, the pressure we have We said as a first shake we're going to do manufacturer's recommended pressure, and that is deference to what it's oh god, deference to what it's oh god, what it says on the bike. Oops, we don't want blood on the tire. The beauty of the countryside. Yep, that tire pressure is way too high. So should we make an executive decision and change the pressure? Well, whose bike is it? Yeah, that's right, it's mine. Whose roads? What speed are we riding? Is comfort far more important and safer than getting bounced out of the seat with every imperfection in the road? Yeah, it is. So technically, we should, if we're true to what we put out there, find our own pressure for this. Because if manufacturer's recommendation from the website is use the sticker on the bike, well, I think we should make a change.
Tire number 2, Pirelli Rosso 2. Set number 3. How many yen? How many dollars? How many British pounds? And for the 4th set, Dunlop Q3 Plus. Again, diligent research on the web. Ta-da! Initial scrubbing is done on all 4 sets. I wish I was doing some of this riding, but Mr. Williams has to bear the burden here because I'm just too busy. So, the other part we talked about is, one, setting the bike up for Dave because he's going to be the guy riding the bike, and then secondly, pressures that we need for each set of tires, unique to that set of tires, that we need to find for Dave. So a little bit more work to do, but riding's going to commence shortly. Same routes, same speeds, just so that everything is consistent as we can possibly make it. This is not an old bike. I'd be really curious to see what the 2020 pressure recommendations are in the handbook for a GSXR 750. Feel free to contribute. I'd like to know. Mr. Williams is up. So in order to make this good for him, we have to set Trash or Treasure up specifically for Mr. Williams. Period, end of story. So, as per series in the past, can we pick the back of the bike up? No. So we have no static sag whatsoever. So before Mr. Williams even gets on the bike, we've got to go ahead, make the spring longer on the shock to try and get some static sag in it. Because right now, 0. So let's get to work. Let's go ahead and check the front. Exactly 80 millimeters. Go ahead, dismount. 95, and total travel is 110. So geometry in riding the bike, 1 set of tires were exemplary, so nice to ride. Other sets not so much. But the geometry we've got, which is fork height here, shock length, and any spaces between the shock and the frame. What we don't want is geometry that's detrimental to the test, where the rider's just fighting all the time. So knowing there's 1 set that really does shine, no, I'm not telling you, then I know that this fork position, plus what we've got set up in the back, matched to the length of the wheelbase we have currently, is going to work very nicely. So I'm not going to change the geometry we've got in this. It was a good guess to start with, but now we validated it. So
catch the full video at DaveMossTuning.com.